What's up guys, this is Rush the Watch, my name is Miguel and welcome to the channel once again. On today's tutorial I want to do something quite special. I got a friend of mine, the channel called the Hobby Grotto, his name is Alex, and you better go and check it out because he's gonna be painting the same miniatures that I'm going to be painting with a different style. We both decided that we wanted to paint something special to get a collaboration going on, and we were thinking about something that will be entertaining and attractive to us. What better thing than something that is almost straight from the 90s? And I'm not referring to the miniatures, I'm referring to the look of them. What do you get if you mix glam metal, guns and girls? Definitely this, a shirt bag. For me, in order to get inspiration for this project, I had to get something extra. Necromunda 1995. For those of you familiar with this, is a mixture between Mad Max, cyberpunk, glam, all the goodness from back then, mixed together in the perfect apocalyptic situation. This book gave me so much inspiration just in the shape of the story that goes with the miniatures, as well as the paint jobs that you can find here. But that was not enough, was it? I need a little bit more. Now, knowing Alex from the Hobby Grotto and his great videos, I needed to give it a twist. I wanted to finish this very fast because I didn't have much free time due to my job. What better way to motivate yourself than not only having a challenge, but to setting a deadline for finishing it? And that's exactly what I did. Now, everybody knows all these famous YouTubers with their 48-hour, 24-hour challenges where they paint a lot of miniatures in no time at all with their airbrushes and that. I'm not that fancy, I'm not that famous, and I really don't have that much energy. So what I did is something a little bit different. I went to Black Library and I got myself an audiobook from Necromunda, this one, and I decided that I needed to finish painting these girls within the time that I'm listening to this book. Did I achieve that? Well, the video is here. So without further ado, let's start the tutorial, and you can skip to any part because all the timestamps are gonna be in the timeline. Let's get painting.
There are a couple of things about this tutorial that is different from my usual ones. First of all, this is not in order chronologically speaking. I will be painting different parts and showing you how to do that, so you sometimes will see that steps have been done. Don't get confused. I'm just focusing in one area. Just follow the steps as I said if you want to do that. Secondly, obviously I'm going to try to paint my ladies as they were painted back in 1995 when the game was released. So I hope this is of your liking. Last but not least, I have no idea of how the game plays, so the equipment that they have is the one that appears in the box art. So yeah.
As I said before, there are three key components of any shared gun: girls, guns, and glam. For the girls, we're gonna start with the skin. I'm gonna show you how I painted my skin on this particular band. I wanted to get something that depicted the conditions of darkness and being enclosed in a hive city. So I wanted to achieve a hue similar to this one over here, where it shows that the girls actually live in a place where the sun never shines.
For the skin, we're gonna start with Lavado Carne from Game Wash. This is a very light glaze that we're gonna put on top of the white from the primer. And after we're done with that, we're going to use the red wash from Vallejo to give an extra layer of color on it. I like the red wash because it's very light, it is not strong at all, and it doesn't need to be very careful with the consistency of it. It's usually good enough for that. Later on during the project, I'm going to use pure white, very watered down, to highlight certain parts of the flesh. I want the Escher to look pale, as if they live in an underground complex, which is the case. With Blood Angels Red, I'm going to paint their lips very carefully, and then I'm going to use Leviton Blue to paint the eyebrows and give a slight glaze on the eyes to give some shading there. I'm going to retouch after this with pure white, once again quite watered down, to make sure the highlights are on par, clean up some of the makeup, and basically just to get a little bit of extra highlights here and there. And we can call the skin done.
Once the skin is over, let's move on to the next part, the guns.
There are some areas in the weapons that I want to paint black, so in order to do that, I'm gonna start with Night Haunt Gloom, and then I'm gonna darken those with Basilicanum Grey. You will have noticed, if you are not new to the channel, that I haven't painted any metallic yet, and the idea is that I wanted to try something faster, and I started by painting Basilicanum Grey, anything that was in metal, the chem synth, the weapons, whatnot, and then I followed with Agrax Earthshade on top of those things that I have painted in Basilicanum Grey. Any leather straps and whatnot was also done in this fashion.
That'd have been a good idea, but no, Karl said. Regrettably, these gentlemen are no friends of mine.
By now you should have this kind of dark, dirty looking weaponry and leather straps. And we're gonna use now, to further darken the leather, I'm going to use this color, which is Snake Bite Leather. But as you can see, I watered it down quite a lot because it's a very strong color, and I just want it to go recesses. You can use water like I did, or you can use a medium, but water is cheap enough, so why not? I'm gonna use olive green from Dale Rowney to paint the laser guns, and the idea is that I wanted to imply that this had been like an Imperial Guard cache that they had stolen and they were using those weapons from them. To finish that part, I'm going to use Terradon Turquoise, quite watered down because this is once again one of those strong paints, and I'm just going to tint a little bit on top of that olive green. For the leather bolt gun, I'm going to use Ultramarines Blue to paint on, the area that is not going to be metal. The gun's leather weapon has a needle gun, and I'm going to paint the top of it with a little bit of red and darken it with contrast Magus purple. There are quite a lot of areas in these miniatures that need to be painted metallic in the weapons, so I'm going to use my main two colors for that. One is Gehenna's Gold, which I use to pick the details that I want to look a little bit more, luxurious or more striking. Like in this case, I'm going to paint the leader's whip and a few parts of the bolter. But not only on the leader, I'm going to use this also to paint the front of the plasma gun that this lady has, and the stilettos, sheaths, and the handles. With Iron Breaker, on the other hand, I'm going to paint a few parts on their guns as to show that they are made of metal. Interestingly enough, because of the base that we had before with Basilicanum Grey and a little bit of Agrax Earthshade, the weapons look worn out, used, but still metallic. We repeat the process with all the gangers, making sure that everything looks the way it should be. I don't overdo with metal because I want, as I said, the weapons to be used, worn out. So just by putting a little bit of metallic paint here and there, we're gonna achieve that result. I'm gonna get, once again, the Snakebite Leather contrast paint, and I'm gonna go and darken the metals a little bit here and there. The gold, I want to darken it thoroughly because otherwise it looks too shiny and I really don't like that. These girls have some small pieces of gear on their belts, which I painted white before doing some athermatic blue source lighting. The power weapon, in this case, I just paint with athermatic blue over the metal and call it a day. It's a very easy effect and it looks quite shiny and interesting without having to do much. With Leviathan Blue, I'm going to paint the chem thrower. There is this kind of leather strapping on top of the bottles. I'm going to paint that, and notice that I have painted the lines with Iyanden yellow before. You can leave the tubes like that, but I think some warning stripes, some danger stripes will make it more interesting, so I use the blue, Leviathan Blue, to paint those on top of the Iyanden yellow, and this is the result. With Blood Angels Red, we're going to paint the tanks of the chem thrower on top of what we painted it before, and it's gonna make those look more striking. I mean, this is a chemical thrower, so it needs to look a little bit more dangerous than just plain metal. For the chem thrower, I'm going to use Hex Wraith Flame to color the what it seems to be transparent tube and the plume of chemicals that is coming out of it. The idea here is just to darken in the recesses and leave the uppermost surfaces without painting anything on them, just leave them white. We're gonna further darken a little bit in the recesses, the deepest part of those, with warp lining contrast. Okay, so for the plasma gun, we're gonna paint the magnetic coils in white, and then we're gonna paint it with ethermatic blue, staining around it as to create a source light. We're gonna use both Thalasset blue and Magus purple to darken the tip of the cannon, starting with the blue, and then we're gonna use the purple to make it look a little bit like burnout or heated metal. I'm going to use white ink, in this case Dale Rowney, just to pick up very lightly on the magnetic coil, and that's how I finish the plasma weapon. It's a fact, we all make mistakes, and you're gonna stain some parts of the miniature that you didn't want to when you do certain steps. Fear not, no problem, just use white and paint those back into the original primer color so you can get a crisp, nice, clean paint job on top of them.
If you go back in time to the 80s and the 90s and you check out these rock bands from back then, you will get the genre called glam metal. I wanted the ladies to be as glam metal as possible. So here we go with the glam. Hair and clothes.
For those girls who are gonna have green hair, I'm gonna use FW Dale Rowney Olive as the base coat, and then I'm gonna darken it further with warp lining contrast paint. The warp lining, we're gonna water it down a little bit so it runs into the recesses and it doesn't get rid of the nice green color that is not as strong as this one. Bloopers pink is going to be another of the colors that I'm going to use for the hair, and some feathers here and there, and you just paint that straight away, no watering down, nothing, just straight away onto those girls that want to have this color on the hair. I like Terradon turquoise to paint some of the feathers and also some of the parts with the hair. And I just do that straight away from the bottle, no need to water it down on this case because we want it to be quite vibrant. You can use it to deepen the shades on the green in some places, that's absolutely fine. For the blue hair gangers, I use contrast ultramarines blue. You can use this as well for feathers. All the colors that I'm using right now, you can use them on feathers straight away. You can also use Leviathan blue to paint some hair here and there, some feathers, but if you water it down properly, you can use it to paint the shaven scalps of the girls. 2 coats, sometimes even better than 1 if you water it down properly. If you want to include some redheads in your gang, who wouldn't, you need to use Fuegan Orange for the hair or any orange ink or wash that you have available. This is probably the most fun band to paint of all of them in Necromunda because of the amount of colors that you can put. You can go wild on them and they will look fantastic nonetheless. Blood Angels Red straight from the pot goes onto some hair here and there and also some of the feathers in the girls. To finish this craziness off, I'm going to use Ethermatic Blue and also Magus Purple. Those areas of hair that I haven't painted with anything, I'm going to actually use Apothecary White just to get some small shading in here and there whilst still looking as white hair. And that's it, you can call it done now regarding the hair and the feathers. For the pants, we're gonna have to choose 3 colors. The first one I'm gonna use Contrast Thalasser Blue, and I'm gonna paint those in this color. Remember that the miniatures have 2 sides, and also after that I'm going to use Lavado Azul from Game Wash to give it an extra layer to darken that blue. In other miniatures, I'm gonna use Flesh Terrors Red, both sides as well. And also remember that on top of the belt, there is this small line of pants that you need to paint. To darken this one, I'm going to use Contrast Magus Purple. My favorite color is green, so I'm going to use Plaguebearer's Flesh to paint some of the pants, and then in order to make it more vibrant, I am going to use Warp Lightning in order to achieve a proper green, not the yellowish one that we would get if we only use Plaguebearer's Flesh. Now that we got the pants out of the way, it's time to paint the stockings and the vests on these ladies. So we're gonna use Nighthorn Gloom, which is going to give us a nice gray base color for that. After this, we're going to use Basilicanum Grey in order to make them look like black with nice grey highlights. Once you've done with this, you might need to clean up some of the stains. So use pure white to clean the armor, because you're going to need to paint it with Iyanden yellow after this. There are a few parts on the armor that you need to paint: the knee pads, the boot plates, the shoulder plates, and also the stuff on the back that is part of the armor. When you paint it with Iyanden yellow and going against the black background of the vest and the stockings, the miniatures will start looking quite nice already. For the leader, I decided that I wanted to paint her jacket, her big coat, in Volupus pink. And the reason for that is that I wanted to go full glam metal on this lady. When you are under Hive Scum, nothing says so like a leather jacket in pink. To enrich the color, I'm going to put a little bit of Magus Purple on top of it, that it will go into the recesses and darken the pink to make it much more vibrant. And to finish off the jacket, I paint the symbols and the studs on gold. The Escher band has a remarkable thing, that is these big cat skins. I mean, this is very reminiscent of the glam metal from the 90s and the 80s, and it looks absolutely stunning on the Escher. I decided to do 3 different patterns: a white tiger, a normal tiger, and a leopard. And for this, I left one of them in white and the other 2 I painted in yellow. So the girls who have the white and some of yellow skins, I'm going to paint those with a fine detail brush and Leviathan blue. And for the leopard girl, I'm gonna do the same, but I'm gonna paint a wedge shape pattern with this same color. After you do that pattern, you need to paint a white dot inside those wedges, so it looks like a leopard. For the white tigers, we're gonna use Apothecary White to darken those skins in the recessed areas. You don't need to be very careful, you just need to use this sparingly, because it's a nice, very clear color and it's not gonna stain it too much. Something I forgot to mention before is that you need to use Leviathan blue to paint a straight line, vertical straight line in the middle of the eye of the tiger, which is the jewel that all girls have in the belt buckle, and some of them in other parts, like the leader, as you can see on the forehead. With Fuegan Orange, we're gonna paint some of the feathers, some of the clothing that we haven't touched yet, and most importantly, after we paint a line on those, we're gonna paint the eyes of tigers that we have in the Escher, which is one of the most striking symbols. Everybody has one in the belt buckle. With Fuegan Orange, I'm also, as you can see, retouching the underside of the armor plates to give them an extra layer of shading, and I'm painting the stiletto handles, which I'm going to further darken now with Blood Angels Red. Because most of the clothing has been painted already, well, sometimes you just leave a few things here and there. I'm gonna use Blood Angels Red to paint those, like for instance this bandana that this girl has on her face. It's time to finish the clothing, so I'm gonna use Gehenna's Gold to pick up some of the details that I want to be in gold. And I'm going to use Iron Breakers to paint the other ones that I want to be painted in a silver color. Now this is quite straightforward, you just need to choose which ones you want in silver, which ones you want in gold, and very carefully with a detail brush just paint those, make sure that they pop. The shoes will get the same treatment with highlights in Ironbreaker, but then to kill off the shine a little bit, we're gonna use very sparingly Skeleton Horde, we're gonna darken the metallics, we're gonna put a few chips on the armor, and then also I will just paint the recesses on the white tiger loincloths.
It is 1:47 a.m. Just begun chapter 32 on the book. And this is where we are with the band of Escher. I mean, they are very close to be finished. Not much left to do on them. A few details here and there finish, but I think I'm gonna be able to do it. I'm gonna be able to make it. Just a few details, a little bit of cleaning up, and there we go. This is a lot, man. I don't know how many people do crazy stuff like those ones. Oh, those other YouTubers trying to paint things in a weekend. Not for me. Not for me. It's crazy. No. I'm too old for that crap. Wish me luck. Let's go. Now that we got the big 3 Gs, girls, guns, and glam, it's time to put them in the setting. And that's where we are going to work with the bases.
I was able to paint most of the band within the 34 chapters, the first 34 chapters of the book, and I was quite chuffed about it, considering that I wanted to finish everything before the audiobook finishes. So now it's time for the bases, and what I did is I got a flow enhancer to mix with my flame orange Daily Rowney ink, and I mixed those in my vortex mixer just to see how it works, and it works fantastic. It looks like a carrot in my head, doesn't it? Sorry. And I just painted the bases with this. The main issue with painting with wash this liquid is that you need to let it dry thoroughly before moving on to the next step. So I used Skeleton Horde after this was thoroughly dry, and I let it dry as well. And I followed with Magus Purple, which I did a little bit of stippling here. The idea is that I didn't want to paint the whole thing, I just wanted to put certain places where the rust was so old or the metal was so corroded that it will turn into this deep purple color. I needed to wait until this dried and I wanted to save time, so in the meantime I used Abaddon Black without watering it down much and a big brush to paint the sides of the bases. Because the base is orange, I think that painting some green dots as if they were mold will make it look even more interesting. And for the final step, I'm going to use the most expensive tool in my repertoire, a pencil. You just shave off some of the graphite and you're going to create this fine dust that you can mix with water or varnish or something like that, and you just put it on areas in the base. That is going to create some interesting grit that it's going to look fantastic in these industrial bases. If you want to add an extra layer of detail as if it was ash or coal or something like that on your bases, you can do this. Remember, you have to seal it with a little bit of varnish. The band is now finished. I managed to paint it within the time frame that I had put myself to do, with a couple of chapters actually to boot, and I'm quite happy with the results. I have a weak soft spot for skirmish games from Games Workshop. The smaller format allows you to get some miniatures and get something painted quite fast. Enjoy the process because you have the time and the energy to delve into the details of the miniatures. Therefore, Necromunda sounds like a great plan to me. I think I say it all the time, but these miniatures really were very fun to paint. The amount of details that they have, and because there are not so many of them, allowed me to explore different concepts and just go crazy on all the color choices that I wanted to experiment with. The fact that they have all these different parts, jewels, armor, weapon, leather skins, I mean, what else do I need in order to have fun with a paint job? This has been an absolute pleasure to paint, and I hope my friend Alex has had at least half the fun that I did with this Escher band.
So that's it. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. I hope that is useful to you. If you want to see how my friend Alex Harris got his girls painted, you need to visit this channel over here, the Hobby Grotto, and you make sure that you subscribe to him. If you haven't done it yet, please subscribe to Rush the Wash, because you know what, I have a pile of shame, and the best way for me to tackle it is whenever I get more subscribers. You guys asking for more miniatures painted is what actually drives me to get back into the table and put some washes on them. My name is Miguel. Thank you guys for being in the video. See you on the next one. Bye. You get all these fabulous bands from the 80s and the 90s, and you get a genre. Okay, Google, how to pronounce genre. Okay. If you go back in time and you get all these rock bands from the 80s and the 90s, you will get a genre called